Hey everybody, I'm Joel with iodnations.org. That's iodnations.org. Let me put it up here for you. We'll go IOD. That stands for International Online Democratic Nations, citizen-led online democracy. What is an international online democratic citizen-led nation? So people ask me all the time, you know, what is an online democratic nation and why do you call them nations? Well, nations are the most powerful and influential forms of human collaboration. And so what you're looking at right here, this is planet Earth. And we'll have, over here is North America, and over here is South America, and we'll say, we've got Greenland, um, Europe over here, and off of Europe, then we've got, Russia and those countries, and some of that comes down here, and then off in here, we've got China or whatever they are over there, okay? But you have these countries, or these are continents, but within those continents, you have countries or nations. Okay. And so the way that the world works or has worked up until the advent of the internet and the virtual world is that all of these countries have throughout history fought for dominance. I call it the game of world domination. Okay. And what they're trying to do is they're either trying to survive, most of them are, and there's a few of them that are always throughout history trying to become they're trying to become the dominant force in the world, right? You can go to Genghis Khan, to Napoleon, um, to Great Britain, there the Netherlands, Belgium, there's been these examples, Rome throughout history, where different nations try to become the dominant nation or the dominant entity. Okay. And throughout history, those have always been land and borders based, right? So, if you're over here in your Brazil or whatever it is, and Belgium wants to come over and invade you or take you over or whatever, you're there and you're protecting and defending your nation, those land and borders, okay? And Belgium or Great Britain or whoever it is, right? They're trying to get bigger and stronger and earn more money and make life better for their citizens. All right. And so that's the way the world has evolved. And within those countries, you normally end up with really wealthy, powerful, influential people who are trying to dominate. They're generally authoritarian. They're trying to dominate and expand. All right. And so then around 30 years ago, okay, um, Al Gore created the internet. We all know that, right? And so when Al Gore created the internet, it in essence, it created this whole parallel world, right? It's like its own environment is how I like to think about it, okay? And it has gotten to the point where it encompasses our traditional world. And so we've gotten to the point where if you have a nation or if you have a business or a corporation or anything like that, right? None of those of consequence exist without some sort of online presence. Okay. They have some kind of a presence online. All right. And so what we've seen happen with that is as the internet has evolved, from these different continents or whatever, we've had the tech industry and the tech authoritarians, what they're doing is they're spreading their influence, okay, out here, and they want to come in and they want to dominate all of this space that surrounds our planet, right? And they're using that domination of the internet, of this surrounding environment of planet Earth to obtain dominion, right? It's the game of world domination. And what's happened is where these traditional countries used to do it, now what we've got is we've got these really powerful, wealthy, technological assholes. And they think that they're going to be able to dominate all of these places. Okay. And so they, over the last 30 years, they've been filling in and gaining, power and influence and control over this whole virtual world, right? And they've pretty much made it their own. So if I were to look at anyone who's watching this video, unless you've heard me talk before, and I said, do you access the internet? And almost every person on any of these continents would say, well, yeah, I access the internet, right? But what is the internet? Okay. What makes up the internet? What makes Facebook a international power, right? Facebook has in essence become an online virtual nation. Okay. So you could almost say, you know, that this part of the internet is owned by Facebook, and this part is by Twitter, and this part is by one AI, and this is another AI, right? And you have all of these entities, and they're fighting this game of world domination, right? Except they're doing it on the internet. They want to gain dominion over all of that. But what is the internet? What are you obtaining dominion over, right? Where does if this is Facebook here, right? And they occupy and dominate this part of the internet, and then they're using the money from that, and they're going into AI, and they're gaining dominion over other parts of the internet. What is Facebook? Where does Facebook get their value? Where do they get the right to that? And do you really access the internet? Because our premise at IOD Nations is this simple, and it says we are the internet. But we take it a step further, okay? We don't access the internet, we are the internet. And we have a message for Facebook and Twitter and all these AIs and Amazon and everybody there who wants access to us on the internet. We go, without us, we, you and I, each of us, we are the internet. Without us, you ain't shit. Okay? The the power and influence that this AI or Facebook or TikTok or whoever it is, their primary value is us, right? We're the commodity. They're milking us. They only are able to sell their advertising and get everything they want because they get that money from us, right? The the companies that advertise on Facebook, like we've tried to run ads on Facebook to promote freedom and democracy. Did you know we cannot even run a paid ad, or it's very difficult to run a paid ad that uses the word freedom or democracy. So basically, you've got Facebook trying to stop freedom and democracy from spreading. Now, you can debate whether they're doing that purposely or not, right? But they're trying to stop freedom and democracy from spreading because the bigger and more powerful they can get, okay, they can then come over and obtain dominion over another part of the internet. All right. But we don't access the internet. We grant access of Facebook to us, right? When I go on and sign on my computer and I open it up, I get to decide whether I go to Facebook. They're not the internet. They just happen to have attained dominion across this, just like Twitter has TikTok or ChatGPT or PayPal or all these motherfuckers who control the internet, right? We are the internet. They're controlling us. But without us, they ain't shit. Okay? We could literally, if you got people to unite online, which is International Online Democracy, International Online Democratic Nations.org. Our contention is all you have to do is get one large contingent of pro democracy citizens to unite online, right? And we're doing it. The majority of the people who follow us are women, okay? And we're proposing that the women of the world and the women of the United States, and in alignment with the Epstein victims, okay, we're proposing that all of those pro democracy women unite online and that they form, found, and establish the International Online Democratic Women's Nation. Okay, so that's the IOD Women's Nation. Okay, now that nation is based upon a premise that I developed, and it's called, I don't even have a name for it, but it says this: if a business no longer requires brick and mortar, if Facebook can become a world dominant business primarily without brick and mortar, then a nation no longer requires land and borders. We can do the IOD Women's Nation, the IOD Youth Nation, the IOD Climate Nation, the IOD LGBTQ Nation, the IOD Art Nation, okay? Whatever you want to do. Imagine the IOD Art Nation. Imagine if all the musical artists in the world united online, right? They created their own nation and they said to Spotify, Spotify, we need you to do a couple things. We need you to declare that you're pro democracy, and we need you to put steps in place to prove it. Okay. We need you to collaborate with all of our artists, musical artists, because that's who Spotify is. And you need to put together a profit sharing program with them that's much more in line with their values. And just so you know, if you're not interested in it, we've got 1 billion women who are pro democracy and they want the artists to get more money from their music. When we pay for our subscriptions, okay, let's say it's the IOD Veterans Nation, International Online Democratic Veterans Nation, right? And they're saying, hey, we got a lot of veterans who are musicians and they're getting fucking ripped off. So we want to be in alignment with the 1 billion from the IOD Women's Nation. And then the IOD BIPOC nation says, wait a minute, motherfuckers, you know, we're responsible for Motown and we want our music to benefit. So we're the BIPOC nation. We're going to work with the art nation and the women's nation. And our message to Spotify or fuck, I don't know what the other platforms are that are out there is meet our requirements or we're all going to cancel our subscriptions. Okay. And if we do cancel our subscriptions, we're only going to go somewhere else temporarily because we will have just put you out of business. In essence, there's a good chance that might happen. Or if we haven't, we have substantially impacted the value of your company because now you have to remember we are the internet. We are Spotify. Without us, you ain't shit. Without the artists and without the women, you're not a very valuable company. And so what we're going to do is we're going to do what the business world does all the time, and all these wealthy motherfuckers do all the time. We're going to execute either a friendly or a hostile takeover. We're not maybe maybe the International Online Democratic Art Nation is going to decide that they want to collaborate with the International Online Democratic Technology Nation. And they don't want to acquire Spotify or whoever it is. Okay. That's their prerogative. Those nations are going to come up with this. I'm not up here telling people how things have to work, right? What what IOD Nations are doing and what we're trying to explain to people is the minute you realize we are the internet. Without us, you ain't shit. We are the internet. Without us, you ain't shit. We are the internet. Without us, you ain't shit. Okay? The minute we do that, we now have dominion. Okay? So now what happens is we come in and we dominate all of this internet space. And why are we able to dominate it? Because it's us. We are self-determinate human beings. We can collaborate with each other. We can establish these nations. They can determine their own Bill of Rights and their declarations of independence and their constitutions and their voting structures. If the International Online Democratic Women's Nation wants to adopt ranked choice voting, they put it up for a vote and they do it. Okay. If the International Online BIPOC Nation wants to get together and they want to collaborate with the International Online Education, Democratic Education Nation, and they want to put together a whole online education system that benefits the Black, Indigenous, and people of color across the world, they get to do that because it's their fucking nation. Okay. It's not the assholes in red who are trying to obtain dominion over us. And so that is a preliminary kind of an introduction to what the power and potential of international online or national online citizen led democracy can be. Now, I'll close this out on this. So you say, how do you get those people to organize, right? Now, like I said, I've been trying for 10 years to get people to think about and understand this. And the thing you need to understand is this. Or this, okay? A mouse and a phone. This is like a nuclear dirty bomb, okay? And this is like a nuclear ballistic rocket, all right? Because any citizen in the world can simply send a text message or an email. And if they all send it to the same location, they're all united there. And if they collaborate there democratically and they call themselves a nation, they are an international online democratic women's nation. So we we want the women of the world to found the International Online Democratic Women's Nation. Okay. But Ukraine, the women of Ukraine can participate in that. Right now in the world, Ukraine can't get into NATO because Hungary's blocking them, because Putin is putting pressure on Hungary, because China is funding Putin to do that so that they can expand communism across the world, right? That's what's going on right now, right? China is funding these wars to weaken democracy and spread communism. That's the reality of the situation, okay? But you could just have a billion people, or you could start with 1,000. You could start with 100. We're going to be doing it. We do it after every show in our live feeds. We're starting to send emails, okay? And send it to NATO. And all you have to say is, hi, NATO, I'd like to become a registered online democratic citizen with NATO. And we would like you to publicly announce that you are endorsing the creation and expansion of online citizen led democracies. Okay. Now, Ukraine unites online. They get a bunch of their citizens to unite online, and NATO gives them recognition. But not only does NATO give them recognition, Ukraine says, by the way, we want to establish an online NATO or an online UN, and we want to be the founding online democratic citizen led nation that does that. So now all of a sudden, you have not just all the traditional nations or all the NATO nations, but you have all of these online democratic nations that are uniting. And Ukraine is one of the first who did it. Okay. And I'm going to leave you with this. There are so many important factors, but what are some of the primary fundamental differences between online democratic nations and traditional land and borders based nations? Okay. What do you think might be like some of the fucking extraordinary differences that happen? Here's one of the most important ones, if not the most important one. These virtual nations that are established, they don't have land and borders. You cannot attack them with the military. And they are not a part of the existing governance of Ukraine, for instance. The online democratic citizens of Ukraine, they operate independently. They operate in conjunction with all of the other international or national online democratic nations. Okay. So if they collaborate and do something, you can't attack them with the military. It makes it changes the power dynamics of the world. It fucking disrupts the industrial military complex, okay, which is already happening because the United States of America is getting shut out because we're now in alignment with the authoritarian fascists and communists of the world, right? And the rest of the free world is abandoning us. But if the online democratic citizens of Australia are starting to feel threatened by China, okay, they get all of these others, and maybe they impose their own sanctions or tariffs on China or Russia or Iran or North Korea or anybody who's fucking up world peace and starting wars like the United States is right now, okay? What happens is the pro freedom and democracy citizens of the world now control the whole environment that envelopes the world because we are the internet. Without us, they ain't shit. That's today's presentation. I hope that helps you understand the power and potential of online citizen-led democracy. And I hope that my artwork has just astounded you the way it does me. Thanks so much, and we look forward to seeing you on our next show. And maybe then I'll be able to figure out how to keep my face in the goddamn camera. And remember, make democracy offensive, not anonymous. Thanks, guys.